Good morning and welcome to Jew in the City Speaks with your host, Allison Josephs, also known as Jew in the City. If you haven't seen it yet, you can catch part one of our Jewish matchmaking interview series that we're doing right now. It's a new show that just came out on Netflix. I previously spoke to the producer consultant on the show, Ronit Polan-Tarshish, about her role behind the scenes, but she's someone you didn't know about. If you saw the show yet, which premiered on May 3rd, the star of the show, who's joining us today, is Aleeza Ben Shalom. And I'm so delighted to have her here with us to discuss what it was like to bring concepts like shidduchim, Jewish matchmaking, shomer negia, not touching before marriage, just so many points of faith and Jewish rituals to the world. First of all, welcome to the show, Aleeza, and what was that experience like?
Thank you, Allison, so much for having me. It was actually incredible. It was refreshingly beautiful and not at all like other people's experiences who have struggled to have a beautiful story and a true story represented. It was, for me, I'm like without words almost. It was such a pleasure to work with the staff and everybody that was there, and with all of the cast and everybody who came from all different, backgrounds and all different locations. It was really something unique and special.
So I agree, as the viewer, and as I mentioned to Ronit, first of all, as our organization has been fighting for so many years, Jewish representation in general is highly problematic. Orthodox Jews are basically never in the room, sort of for that specific piece of it, are basically never in the room to, tell the stories in their own words, both as sort of the stars of the show and then, kind of the behind the scenes piece of making sure that everything is in place, because I really think that it has to be both pieces, you kind of carrying the show with your authenticity and your character, and then Ronit to kind of like look over everything and make sure that everything, was as it should be, because it's kind of hard to do both roles. I just want to compliment you also that you have so much chen, which translates to kind of just like a grace, a presence. The thing about reality TV is that it often kind of like has to rely on drama, and in shows especially about dating, I was really envisioning that it would be kind of showcasing the worst of what people can be. People can get so petty and shallow and bring out the worst qualities in a human being. So besides just Jewish representation in general being something that is often not good enough, sort of doing it through the framework of dating gave me even more concern. Kind of the one thing I knew was that Ronit was involved with the show, so I was hoping it was okay. Then when I saw your face, kind of being advertised as the star, that also was like, wow, I've never seen a Baal Tshuva, first of all, as like the star of a show. So as a fellow Baal Tshuva, that's just sort of incredible to see. But what I want to say is that, all the characters have their shortcomings, as human beings do, as we all do. But you really have this ability to like see the beauty in all the people you deal with, which is so lovely to see you seeing the best in them. And it's so nice that your character sort of just like carries like nice Jewish values throughout the show, because like at the end of the day, not everyone is always on their best behavior, just in life or in dating. And you're kind of that like steady force in the show of just representing, a traditional Torah way of life. So just want to thank you for that piece.
Thank you. And what you see is what you get. That really is me. That's me in the real world. That's me in the show, because, I'm not a character, so to speak. I'm not an actress. I am who I am, and I just do what I do. And it does take an amount of effort to carry a certain level of positivity just in general. My mother raised me like that. How we look at the world and how we look at other people is with, their good and their potential, and also helping them to overcome their challenges, which I think is also a big part of the show, is that we're very real. And I also am very accepting and non-judgmental. You are who you
Mm-hmm.
are, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And I'm great with who you are. And let me, open your eyes. Are you willing to try on something like Shomer Negia for size, a modified version, right?
Yeah.
So in the same way that if we're doing a workout and I'm not up to that, I can't lift 50 pounds, but I could lift 5, we could modify it. So I modify things that we traditionally do in observant dating, and I bring it to everybody so that not just the people on the show, but the audience also can grab onto concepts and they can bring it into their own world. So I'm hoping to light up the people on the show, but really light up the world and to help everybody to be able to do this.
Totally. So many times I've noticed that when Jewish traditions or rituals get highlighted in media is in order to mock them, to degrade them, to show how backwards and extreme and, anti-women they are. And, the way that these just different ideas are put forward, it just makes you feel full of pride that we have richness in our heritage, that we have wisdom in our way of life. And it was just such a pleasure to watch. Can you talk about how you got involved with the show? Like, was it you first and then the show came around that? Was there a concept of a show and then they had to find the shadchan? Like, is there any kind of, behind the scenes info you can give us?
Absolutely. Indian Matchmaking came out in the summer of 2020 in the height of the pandemic, and it was a huge hit. People fell in love. It was authentic, it was real, and it was something that they could relate to. And the producers of that, IPC, Netflix is the show, but IPC was the production company, went to Netflix and said, we want to do the Jewish version. And Netflix said, okay, find us a Jewish matchmaker and we'll take it into consideration. So they did a talent search to find the person that they wanted to use. And, we went through the process of interviewing and doing that. So they had the concept, we're under the Indian Matchmaking brand and this is branded. And I could see that there could be future, spin-off shows, whether it's Christian or Muslim matchmaking, that it's the same thing. And it was a blessing because if you have a concept for a show, from your idea until reality could be so many years. And this was, 2020 that it happened, and signed a contract in 2021 and filmed in 2022 and released in 2023. And although that's a long time in showtime, that is really a very short period of time. Awesome. I also want to just go back for a minute to what you said about Ronit and having, somebody Orthodox in the front of the house and somebody Orthodox in the back of the house and doing things. So I was actually the matchmaker to bring Ronit onto the show. I said to production, I want somebody who can validate, and give like the kosher stamp of approval that this is in alignment with what we're looking for. And I'd love for you to bring on from producers, somebody who knows Judaism and can also tell you if this is in line with Judaism. We can't just represent Judaism and have people that aren't Jewish, saying that this is Judaism. And they said, great, can you make recommendations? And I gave them 3 recommendations and they interviewed and they chose Ronit. And I know Ronit because we did a fellowship. We did that in Philadelphia and got her a business fellowship to get these things going. So it's really a very special connection.
Amazing. I mean, there's really so much gratitude I have because, again, we've been working towards this type of an outcome for so many years. And it's just so, it feels so good to actually see when they say representation matters. We've seen so little great representation, proud representation, diverse representation. And this show, has it. And it's not like everyone's perfect. And they don't need to be. That's not even what matters. Right. It's people that I'll actually tell you, as we're trying to develop the language to explain to studios, what we're looking for, tropes we're tired of, what we want to see more of. We're working with a group called Think Tank for Inclusion and Equity. They have fact sheets for, other minority groups. And there's so much that we've learned, from what the other groups are tired of seeing, what they want to see more of. But as I've been, kind of thinking about these different, what's problematic, what we haven't seen and we would love to see, in my mind, the average Jewish depiction is insufferable. And what we would like to turn that to is endearing. Just characters that we can root for, characters that, if they find love or happiness, like, we're cheering them on. And I feel like that's exactly what I found myself doing for these characters. They were a wide range of Jews, so they don't all represent how I live or how I ever lived. And like that was okay because they were relatable and they felt like, my family.
Yes.
And their sort of commitment to each other is building the Jewish future. And that's also something that, we've seen so little of Jews falling in love with Jews on the big screen. That almost never happens. And because media is so impactful, and like, gosh, I wish I could convince donors how flipping impactful media is. But like, I mean, the impact of this show to inspire the viewers to want to go out and find a Jewish partner, and find Jewish pride and find Jewish wisdom. I think it's so tremendous. Are there any ways, any kind of behind the scenes, moments where you think that your presence or Ronit kind of broke down stereotypes about Orthodox Jews or sort of the matchmaking process? Because I think, people see it as Fiddler on the Roof, as, that's referenced in the show itself. And sort of this idea of, it's arranged, it's without choice. And by the way, I want to also give space to the fact that there are a minority of people where they don't have much voice or choice in that's against Jewish law. But in dysfunctional homes, there are instances where that happens. That is work that our organization touches. But when Judaism is practiced as it's meant to be, it's meant to be a beautiful thing. So because people have so many stereotypes in their mind, any instances of, your presence there changing people's perceptions?
I think just by the nature of who I am and how I interact with people, that helped them to look at me in a different way. They knew that I was Orthodox, so I was either going to be wearing a wig that had to be taken care of, or I had a head covering in a different way. So there was an awareness. They catered to having kosher food. And when we were in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and there's no kosher food, they're like, okay, so there's a grocery store. You can get everything you need. We'll get, make sure that you're taken care of. And they were always looking out to do what they needed to do in a very beautiful and respectful way. And for me, I tried to be as inclusive as possible. So everybody knew on the staff that on Shabbos, because I would spend Shabbos alone unless I like couldn't go to communities. Nobody knew who I was. And if I was in America, why are you in America? Didn't you just make Aliyah? Why would you work in America? Like, what? Doesn't make any sense. So I often spent Shabbos alone, just for privacy and not to leak anything. But I started to invite, every city I went to, I invited the cast, whoever I was working with over. And sometimes I'd have somebody from production come too. I'm like, who wants to come for Shabbos dinner Friday night? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, I'm cooking. They're like, you're cooking? You're on vacation. I said, no. They bought me a suitcase. I had my kosher suitcase. So I had my luggage, and my kosher suitcase with my pots and my pans, and I had kosher things where I go. And they bought me everything that I needed so that I could live my authentic Jewish kosher life on the road. It was really beautiful and to me heartwarming. They went above and beyond to take care of any of my needs.
It's so gorgeous. It warms my heart. Jews are not often included in inclusion spaces. Jews are often not accommodated when sort of accommodations happen in sort of different professional corporate spaces. And it only changes when we have a presence, when we raise our voice. I think my perspective is that I think in most cases people don't realize, don't know. And it's so great because I think, you doing this will only set the bar higher and create, increased awareness. And it's such a lovely thing that you're not just there to film a show that will hopefully do well and make money, but like your values, go off the screen. They continue, in your everyday life, the value of hospitality, hachnas orchim. We don't see like the ending in this season yet. And I guess I feel like characters have different paces of like how soon they want to get married. There was one character that seemed like they're years away, and I'm like, hey, let's get moving here. Like,
Me too. I'm like, if you want a marriage, you can't tell me 4 years. That doesn't work. But it is,
I know.
it's their own timeline. We have to work with, this is real people, and it's across the Jewish spectrum. So and some of them were very young. The youngest person I think was 24. So for somebody who's secular and 24, like, oh, to be married in either 4 or 6 years, depending, but I'm looking for a serious long-term relationship. To me, I also question that. Well, how's that going to work? Are you really looking for something serious? Are you sure? Like I push the envelope a little. I lovingly play with them through the concepts so that they can try them on for size, because often they haven't really been thinking about marriage. They're thinking about a relationship. They're thinking about love. They're thinking about a connection. But in terms of actually settling down, for some people, it is far away.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I felt like, and it was so beautiful how the sort of longer, older married couples, kind of were woven through to give some of their wisdom. And, the fascinating thing for me, like I got married at 20. I met my husband at 17, first day of freshman year, and we waited 3 whole years to get married. It was not through the shidduch process. We just met the first day of college.
Wow.
And I was looking for cute boys with yarmulkes. I found a few, but he was one that was available. And we were kind of just friends at first. And then because we realized we couldn't just be friends for too long, I actually went to Israel for a whole year to just take my time to grow and kind of get myself ready for that next stage. But like getting married young and finding, my basher young was such a wonderful thing. And I think I was so judged by so many of the people from, the world that I came from. Like, what are you doing? But then meanwhile, like I have this beautiful family of 4 children, and it's interesting because I think in a way, not that there's like, I don't want to put like judgment on other ways of life, but I feel like in a way, some of the Jewish people in the show kind of talked about like missing their chance, like almost in a way, like the world that they have lived in now, missed out the opportunity of being able to find their person. The swiping isn't working. The like waiting and waiting isn't working. It's almost like they did all the things that like kind of their world told them to do, and they're finding themselves alone. Some of them kind of expressed that sentiment, that, they saw themselves settling down. They saw themselves with a kid. And that was such a like sort of turn of events for me, or, the non-Jewish world, now the secular world, to maybe be held up to say like, was this the right way to live? Should I return now more to Jewish values? I don't know if you noticed any of that, or if you have any thoughts on. It's a challenging environment right now, the way people are meeting and just waiting to marry or not marry at all. Any thoughts on sort of that dynamic?
Yeah, it's very challenging. I think that what's happened in the secular world, and this isn't in the Jewish world alone, where my matchmaking network extends across all backgrounds. So even in the non-Jewish world, we are seeing the same things. Education comes first. Earning a living comes first. Being alone, buying your apartment or living in your apartment, having your own space, moving out of your home. All of these comes first. This comes first. And we are bred and built to be individuals, independent, do my own thing, which is the exact opposite of what you need to be in a relationship, to stay in a relationship, to build a relationship. So we build ourselves up as individuals, and then we wake up and go, good, I am who I need to be. Let me bring somebody in. But I'm so much of who I need to be.
Right.
I don't have any space for who I need to become, because I work so hard to be who I am. I don't want to shift. I'm good where I am. I just want to plug somebody in right next to me. And it's not really how it works. And I think that traditional Jewish values of, yes, getting married at a young age, it's incredible. You grow and become who you need to be together. Okay, so you have less financial stability, or somebody's still going through school, or still, working their way up the ladder. No problem. It's okay. But you have your family. You have the stability of a home environment and being involved in a larger community as a unit together, so that you're not just independent and alone in the world. And I think independence became something that people started to worship. That's what we wanted. And we got it. Now we achieved what we wanted, and we didn't get what we really wanted, which is love and community and connection, and this person to live and grow with. And people are seeing it, I hope, through this show, and seeing something really beautiful and going, wait a minute, I don't have to wait till 27. I could start at 24. Like, maybe I could shift my timeline. Maybe I should get more serious, because maybe when I want to find somebody, it's not going to happen right away. And I don't want to wait so long. Again, I always say this, it's the hardest thing to do in the world, to get married, to find your person, to choose them, and for them to choose you back. There's nothing like it. It's so difficult. If you wait to start it, we don't know what's going to happen. No waiting. Prep yourself. 22 and secular, great. 22 and religious, great. Any age, it doesn't matter. Just start as soon as you can start, because we don't know how long the process is going to be. And the more you grow with the other person, the easier it is in life. I got married and I was 25. My husband was 36, and we have an age gap between us. And he said he worked so hard not to be so independent that he couldn't come together with somebody. So even though he could have had an apartment on his own, which he did for a period of time, several years before, he started to live with other people so that he would be used to being inconvenienced, having to work around somebody, and building a life with somebody else in it. So he had an acknowledgement of that. And his, rabbis and his teachers said, you have to watch out for this. Look for somebody that you have things in common with, and try to build a current life that will be in alignment with the future life that you want to build.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I think this wisdom will, I think, be so powerful for so many people, because I think, you kind of follow the rules. And the truth is that as a person who became observant, I felt like I followed the rules of the world that I was in up until the point that it stopped making sense to me. And then, of course, I did the reevaluation and made that shift. I did it young. I did it when I was like 16, 17. And I think it's so incredible to be able to put this wisdom out there for people who don't have to go on as long and then say, oh, wait, what happened to my youth, to my chance to find someone. Do you think that we saw certain things on the screen, it's cut and edited in a certain way. Do you think there was people that you dealt with that were more skeptical, and then the more they worked with you, they began to trust in the process more?
So I think I have a certain gift. This is why I'm in this industry, but I have a certain gift of making people very comfortable. And even, in front of a camera, no camera, it doesn't matter. I could sit down with somebody and very easily in 3 to 5 minutes have them to tell me their life story, hand them a box of tissues because they're crying, because I come in with no judgment, and I come in with connection, and I come in with a belief that they will find what they want and that I'm here to help them. And people just open up. And so I didn't find that people were hesitant to open up. You might have seen in the very beginning of an interview, somebody was a little bit more comfortable just to be on camera. But between us, I walked in for the first time to meet somebody, Harmony, for example, and she's like, hello, and gives me a hug. Everybody, Danny, Nakisha, Cindy, hello, and hugs. It was very, very warm. And all of the men, knew. I walked in, I gave the mezuzah a kiss, and I gave them a wave. And I said, hello. We didn't shake hands. It was very beautifully and respectfully done. And I think that's also something to point out. I think that there were a lot of little Jewish references and nuances, things like kissing the mezuzah, that was acknowledged.
Yeah.
And that could very easily just be glossed over, like, oh, you don't know that that's important. But it was things like that I, and I even pointed it out to, the film crew and the production, and said, this is something that we do. I just want you to acknowledge, like kissing the mezuzah, it's a way of acknowledgement. This is like a part of a traditional thing. You might want to catch this. And they were extremely receptive to anything that brought more wisdom to the whole process, and like more beautiful pieces of Judaism. They were very happy to include it. We included just like
blessings.
But
also
blessings are my superpower. My name's Aleeza Bracha, and giving blessings. And I gave a blessing to everybody after every single meeting. So you don't see all of them, but you catch that I give a blessing and people receive them. It is, when do you see that on a show, on a reality show?
Right.
It's
never.
It's unheard of. But I felt like they really did build this show around the energy of who I was, and the Judaism and the life and the warmth and the connection that I bring to people and to the world. And they captured it. I feel so honored and blessed to have been a part of this, and that they were able, like, to say, like, oh, nobody knows how to do it. My answer is yes, they do. Maybe we just didn't have the right representation to do it yet, but yes, they do. And when you have the right person in the front of the house and the right person in the back of the house and a beautiful production company that says, we want to make it more documentary style, even though it's a reality series, I think that you can end up with something. I mean, I know you can because we just did.
It's really just about like giving the real people the chance to be authentic as opposed to projecting judgment onto, you know, what's in front of them. I think that's what makes all the difference. I think there's just been so much judgment and kind of sort of past ideas put onto the Jewish subjects of most of what we've seen. And I think it's groundbreaking. It's historic. We will hold this show up to other studios as an example of what could be done if you just let people speak, you know, authentically in their own words. So it's really incredible. And I mean, really, all I can say is I hope there's season 2. I think there's so many more stories to tell. Yeah.
And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for seeing this, for acknowledging this. I want to thank you for all of the work that you've been doing behind the scenes so that a show like this could come to be. Because without everything that you and Jew in the City have done to lay the foundation and the groundwork, I don't think there would have been an opening for this. And there was an opening. So I think that it's a tremendous blessing. And I have a lot of gratitude towards you and everything that you've been doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, you know, we had no connection to the show whatsoever. And, you know, hearing that it was happening, I was wondering, you know, have our efforts for, you know, 16, 17 years gotten through anywhere? Because we've kind of only reached that Hollywood level in like the last year and a half. But I hope somewhere, somehow, you know, it's made a difference. And it's so important when we have something actual to show, because we have many examples now. We've cut up many examples of things that have gone wrong. And you know, it's interesting. My daughter, one of my teenage daughters, saw a documentary that we made, sort of showcasing many bad examples of Orthodox Jews specifically in TV shows and movies, and it premiered at our launch party last year. And she was like, my whole life I've heard you talk about how they depict us. I can't believe this is real. This is really how they put us on TV and movies. Like, it's unbelievable. She overheard me watching the screeners, you know, before the interview. Yes. And she started hearing, like, you know, people saying frum, and I'm very frum. And she's like, what is this? And she comes over and her face lit up. And I mean, it's just so wonderful to see your child feeling proud of the representation that she's seeing, you know, with the frum couple that dated. It's just, it's proud. It just makes you kind of stand up a little bit taller. And thank God she's a kid that feels very proud of her Judaism, but there's just something different about seeing it acknowledged and seeing it being celebrated, not just for us, but to just be, we're someone that deserves to also have our stories told, also get to, you know, feel good about who we are, what our values are. So thank you so much for, you know, for being a part of this, for being a star worthy of carrying the show, of having so much wisdom to share, you know, doing it with so much grace. The production company, Netflix, you know, anyone who hasn't watched it yet that's watching this interview, Jewish Matchmaking is on Netflix now. We really hope that
May 3rd. Yeah.
May 3rd. Oh, we're not releasing this till May 3rd. So it is May 3rd right now. Yes. Yeah, so this is not going to happen till May 3rd because I couldn't keep any more secrets. Okay. So yeah. So thank you for all your great work. Go watch the show. And to the other studios, pay attention to what Netflix just did right here. And we hope you're going to do it too. Aleeza, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks so much for listening. You can catch us same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.